here.
Got their attention.
It's Linda.
Linda on the phone.
I thought Linda was gonna be here.
Is Linda on the phone?
She's supposed to be here. She's supposed to be
She's
here.
not.
Good evening, Mayor. Due to the general statutes requirements on the bid requirements and the zoning requirements, we did not advertise for a remote meeting tonight, so she can, but we've, yes, so she's excused absence
We
tonight.
miss Linda. Okay. I will call this meeting to order. This is the Thursday, April 8th meeting, regularly scheduled meeting of the Asheboro City Council. We welcome all of our visitors, and we've got quite a crowd. I would like to remind you that the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. So, and we are still under our COVID restrictions, so you will be invited into the room to speak to the council on your item of business or during the public comment period. If you will, at this time, stand and join me in a moment of silent meditation. I invite you to pray in any manner that you're comfortable, and we will follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you're out in the hall and you got a chair, have a seat. First and most important item of business tonight is the recognition of Jane Redding's birthday tomorrow.
Oh. Birthday, all right. Quite surprised.
And if it was our usual very small crowd, I would consider singing happy birthday. But I am not going to do that. And you will be thankful. Maybe after the meeting.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite our facilities maintenance director, Jimmy Cagle, to come forward and bring his daughter and his wife. Y'all come right on up front here, right down here in the front. Come around. You don't have, and face the audience. Come on around here. Come on around here. I'll come out there. John, you want to do this? One of the really pleasurable things about being mayor and my association with the city for 24 years is the wonderful and talented people that I interact with as employees of the city that work for you citizens. Jimmy Cagle is our facilities maintenance director. The man can do anything.
Amen.
He is the most talented person.
Amen.
He doubles also as our electrical inspector, our backup electrical inspector in the building inspection department. And that's because he really knows what he's talking about in the North Carolina electrical code. And evidence to that fact is something that was just presented, but it was actually, Jimmy Cagle was selected and received a plaque, a very nice plaque. I have a picture of it. But Jimmy, on the side, teaches electrical code, and he's an instructor for the North Carolina Electrical Code Board of Examiners. He teaches classes on electrical code and North Carolina building code. So, he was awarded, was supposed to be last April, turns out it was just awarded a couple weeks ago, but, he was awarded the 2019 North Carolina Continuing Education Electrical Instructor of the Year Award for the state of North Carolina by the North Carolina State Board of Examiners of Electrical Contractors. Now, that's a pretty significant thing. All the people in North Carolina that teach continuing ed for electrical contractors, Jimmy Cagle was selected as the instructor of the year. We are so proud of Jimmy and fortunate that he, how many years?
Be 39 in June.
39 years with the city of Asheboro. Experience like that cannot be replaced very easily. But he's got a great department. He does a wonderful job for us. And I am proud of Jimmy and proud to call Jimmy my friend. He does wonderful things for the city of Asheboro. Congratulations. But we're proud of you, Jimmy, and your wife and your daughter. We appreciate you letting us have it.
Yeah, he's got one.
He didn't want to be here.
No, I don't. But John says you've got to be, and he can fire me. The mayor can suggest that he fire me, but John can fire me. But no, years ago when I first got started, Bob Hussey, who passed this past year, kind of calmed me into that, and I've been doing it since. So, and it's not just that I teach them; they teach me too. And if you think about it, electricity has got so safe that we're not scared of it anymore. And that's right. And everybody needs an electrician or whoever's doing their work to be able to do it code compliant, because it's written by the National Fire Protection Association for one thing to stop fires, for another to be safe. And my biggest issue is that most of the time when something goes wrong, it's usually a kid that gets hurt. And so that's it. And like I said, I've been blessed. Mr. Ogburn, he's always supported me. The city gives us a building to do it in once a year, and then of course we do it at a different place once a month. But just thankful for everyone here. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. Thank you very much.
We're doubly blessed. We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for indulging me. Only way out, I'd like to tell you, tonight when you leave, if it is dark, turn around and look back at City Hall. The ambient lighting around City Hall is blue this week, and that is for autism awareness, lighted up blue. And Jimmy Cagle every year calls me and reminds me that it's time to light it up blue. And we have been doing this for about 5 years now. We light up City Hall this week every year for autism awareness. Light it up blue for autism. So it's really pretty when it gets dark. Mr. Everett, I believe you're next.
Yes, sir. May I approach the bench, sir?
You may. Everybody in chambers now.
Greetings all, greetings. As always, I'm highly nervous, but I hope to get across my point.
You
Greetings to the mayor, all
may
of
take
you.
your mask off if you would
Yes.
feel more comfortable.
Greetings to the mayor and each and every one of you. With a small degree of sadness, I must say that I have forgotten the proper protocol for asking for a change in government. Due to the epidemic we've been having, it is sanctions are often separated. But like the man said earlier, he's so proud to be a citizen of Asheboro. I am very proud to be a citizen of Asheboro. Some of you may remember Mayor Reese, I had the pleasure of meeting him as a young boy. That's why I came back to live to Asheboro. But my purpose here today is, I'm sorry I didn't have time to talk to each and every one of you individually about how passionate I feel about celebrating the Juneteenth Day. Thanks for a great audience today. I didn't prepare for that, but I'm glad you're here to hear it. I would like for this chamber to focus and have an entity within this governmental body consider itself the Juneteenth Committee so that they can promote the Juneteenth Committee, not like the YMCA or nothing to that degree, promote it in certain ways and how when people go to the zoo, they know they're celebrating Juneteenth. I would like someday to see in Atlanta, Georgia, as well as Washington, D.C., airports, North Carolina Zoo, Juneteenth celebration. Whatever it takes for you to bring this off. A couple of quick ideas is we have that celebration every Sunday at the park up here, Bicentennial Park. Why not designate that Sunday of Juneteenth around the 19th and 20th and 17th? Dedicate that as a jumping start. There are some things we could do. You can ask those committed people or committed people in our community and see what they say. I hope you can put it into the budget. I hope you can put it into the Tourism Acts, because I believe that Asheboro, as Martin Luther King said in his last speech, is not going to sleep through this new revolution that's coming where all lives matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Any questions or anything?
You are asking us to establish a city committee for Juneteenth. Is that what you're asking?
To some extent, yes, whatever it takes.
Okay.
A committee, an entity that will focus on what they could do to help the
You
city.
have a committee, right?
Well, it's an ad hoc committee. We get together first of the year every year and say, what are we going to do? How can we do it?
Okay. All right, we'll work with you and try to come up with something that will help the effort.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank all,
Other questions?
thank all of you. And if any one of you have been violently suffered any type of action because of COVID, my sympathies and love goes out to all of you, because I have. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Forget your mask.
Again, thank you.
All right, item 5 on the agenda, invite Ms. Emma Cheek, owner of the Exchange, and Ms. Sarah Holden, owner of Asheboro Bagel, to come forward. They have asked to be on the agenda to address the council. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Still the sign.
Oh, and for just something I neglected to mention, when you come in to speak, you need to sign in.
Yes.
There's a sign-up sheet on the podium up here. Just sign, and the purpose of that, and actually print, the purpose is so that when we transcribe the recordings, we can spell your name correctly. Yeah, don't have to print it, we can read it. Can't read mine, I have to print. Okay.
Like the mayor said, I am Emma Cheek. I'm the new owner of the Exchange Banquet and Meeting Hall in downtown. I want to start off by thanking you guys for allowing us to make an appearance here and share our hearts with you a little bit. I want to start off by saying that I am not against the streetery, and I'm not against Asheboro growing and having downtown events. Although the way that this streetery happened in March, I do have a couple of issues with. The day that the streetery was announced to the public, I had 2 clients call and cancel their events for the day that the streetery had happened. They were concerned that they weren't going to be able to have their event due to the downtown event interfering with the event that they had booked. Their events were booked months before that the streetery was even announced that it was going to be happening. In addition to those 2 events canceling and affecting the Exchange, I booked 4 tours with wedding clients that day, because it's rare that we have a Saturday that is open without an event going on. But due to how the streetery went down on Fayetteville Street, that it was difficult for me to even hear my clients talk because the music was so loud coming through our doors. None of the wedding clients that toured that day have booked at the Exchange, so that wasn't just current revenue loss, it's potential revenue loss. And I just want to reiterate that I'm not against the streetery and I'm not against Asheboro, but I do believe that there is a way that we can have downtown events that it doesn't hurt any current business. I would like to see Asheboro grow and the streetery event happen, although I am not for closing Fayetteville Street and how that affects the businesses on that street. I have talked to most of the business owners on Fayetteville that were affected by the streetery, and almost all of them were affected negatively and lost revenue that day. To my knowledge, there was only one business that benefited from having Fayetteville Street closed, and obviously the ball is in y'all's court, but to me that doesn't seem like a worthwhile reason to close Fayetteville Street. I just thank you guys for your time, and I just wanted you to hear our concerns about that.
Thank you, Ms. Cheek. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Holden.
Ms. Cheek. She spoke very eloquently. I'm Sarah Holden, my husband, Greg Holden. We own Asheboro Popcorn Co. and Asheboro Bagel Co. The day that the streetery happened, we had a loss of about $1,000 between lost sales, product I had to throw away that didn't get sold because customers couldn't get to me and they didn't know what was going on, and extra staffing I'd had to prepare for what I thought was going. I gave it a chance. I didn't object to it at all, but after the fact, I would like to echo some of what Emma said is we are not against growth. My husband and I have invested a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of our heart and our family into downtown Asheboro. We are all for growth. We are for sustainable growth over a long period of time where our children and grandchildren will come back to be in Asheboro. A monthly summertime or March through September event, to me, I don't see that as a sustainable growth type of model. But in essence, both of my businesses were negatively affected, and the Exchange is housed between our businesses. I would like to not see Fayetteville Street closed at all. I understand it's going to be closed for the parade or Christmas on Sunset or certain events. We are all for those things. Our businesses thrive during things like that. But if you could all consider how it negatively affected at least 3 of the businesses, we would really appreciate that. And I thank you for your time and for listening to us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm just with her.
Okay.
I mean, I expressed the same exact things. It's just, I would love to have all the streets closed for this event. But again, I have to reiterate, the event is not a festival. The event is for people to bring up their capacities to 100% or whatever. So again, to me, it was a festival, and our facility got used for restroom facilities because there was no facilities anywhere on the streets. I put a lot of sweat equity and a lot of money into my building, and to be used as a public restroom, that was a huge issue for me. And just the fact that it was not designed for a festival. It's designed for people to gain the thing. And at this point right now, I don't think there's enough businesses along Fayetteville to close it. And unfortunately, Mr. Simmons did not come tonight. Don Simmons with the Magnolia 23. He's expressed to us several times
He said he feels our pain.
that he's either left in the dark or he's just
He
slung
closes.
to the wolves because, again, he can't. So that's why, if any of you ever noticed, his hours are very particular. He works around all these events. He's, looks through his calendar, and he'll be closed Saturdays, he'll be closed all these days, because he doesn't want to deal with it. So, and that's how we're looking at this point. If it all ends up going through, we're just not gonna deal with it either. We're just gonna close down, regroup, come to a different,
Okay. All right.
so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mayor, before we leave this, just for the record, I know you've met with Ms. Cheek and Ms. Holden, and I met with Ms. Cheek, so the council knows. So I have given Ms. Cheek all our contact information. Public Works people, recreation names and telephone numbers. I gave my card to Ms. Holden tonight, so I can give her the same information. So just as a matter of record, the staff has been out there and looked at the issue too. So we'll await the council's guidance on how to
All right,
proceed.
Ms. Holden, did we get your trash can issue fixed?
Absolutely. I am so thankful to have a trash can for our business. The public works gentlemen were like angels when they said, can we put the $12 on your bill? I said, please put the $12. We are so thankful that, in the expedience to which it happened.
I'm sorry for that mix-up, the confusion involved in that. And once you let us know, we tried to get it fixed. Thank you.
There is one downside. My husband and I don't have our Monday dates to the dump anymore. So we'll have to find something else to do.
Well,
Maybe sleep.
that's actually just,
Well, we're $12.
that's another hour you get to do something else.
Exactly. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the appointed time for the public comment period. If there's anybody in the house that would like to address the council on any items of city business or concern, now is your opportunity. Would ask that you come in, sign the sign-up sheet, preferably print so we can read it, and tell us what you need to tell us. Mr. Armstrong, you look like you're chomping at the bit. Come on in here.
I'm hot and where
Good afternoon, I'm tired. City council, mayor, city manager, my thing tonight is the crime in Asheboro. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We having these killings, and this is going on, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. This is something the city council need to look at, the police department needs to look at, needs to stop. We need, these young people are killing each other constantly. What is my police department doing? We in an 8-mile radius, but we're gonna build a substation north Asheboro? What is my police department doing? What are you doing? That's what I wanna know. What are you doing? Because if you got somebody on the east side of town getting shot, and then you go up on Plummer Street and you got somebody getting shot, what is my police department doing? It's time to dissolve our police department. Dissolve it to the, wait a minute, no, Mayor, when I say dissolve it, quit, we need to go outside and hire some people. Let's take care of our citizens in Asheboro, better than what we're doing, a lot better. We can do a lot better in Asheboro than what we're doing. We can't continue this pattern for another 5 years. We can't do this. If we're gonna let these kids take over our city, what are we gonna do? Where are we going? In 5 years from now, and 4 years from now, I'm gonna be 65 years old. What I gotta look forward to is some kid gonna, when I walk down the street, gonna take my wallet and kill me because he wants it? We gotta do better. We gotta do better than what we're doing. We gotta do better. And we can. We can. And I ain't saying the police department's gonna raise our kids. That ain't their job. It starts at home. That's where it starts. But we can do better as a police department. We can. We can do better. We need to go outside and hire somebody, a chief or whatever. Yeah, I said it, and I'll say it a minute over and over. This needs to change. It needs to change. This good old boy network has got to stop. And that goes for your city council too. It's got to stop. Some of y'all been over here for 16 years or longer. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what you're doing. And my next thing is that Martin Luther King thing over there. Every citizen in Asheboro ought to take pride in that part of town. I don't live over there, but I take pride on it. On every part of this town, I take pride in it because this is part of my town. We need to take pride in it. That place over there on the east side of town called Martin Luther King looked like something out of a Chicago movie. But us as citizens, what can we do to help? Or are my leaders going over to ask, what can we do for that side of town? Are we going to be that more concerned about it? No, we're not concerned. It's been 10 years. I sit here 2 years ago and talked to Leonard Carter about this whole situation, and nothing's changed. Nothing. But I tell you tonight, I challenge the city council. I want you to do something. I want you to do something. Make Asheboro citizens proud of the leaders that they elected. But tonight, I'm not proud of you. I'm not. I'm not proud of you. I'm sad. I'm hurt. I'm torn. Because we can do a lot better than what we're doing. And you know it. In your heart, when you go home tonight and lay on that pillow, look at that side of town, all the killings they had over there lately. We need to stop that. We need to stop it. And we can. No bigger than Asheboro is, we can stop this problem. We got to come together and make it stop. We got to stop it. Because we can't allow this stuff to continue. Asheboro's better than that. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Armstrong, I tend to agree with you. I don't disagree with you. But you look around statewide, killings are up in every city in North Carolina. Greensboro had mass shooting this weekend. Every time you pick up the paper, it's not just Asheboro.
But
and every time, well, I know firsthand that when our police respond to one thing, the perpetrators know before the police get there because they have it on their cell phones, the scanners. They hear the police dispatch at the same time our police are getting it. And we had the chief had a meeting over on the east side last Friday night a week ago. And there were a lot of sentiments shared, and one of the main things was, how come you're not prepared for this? We used to chase the drug dealers down there at the bridge. They'd go up to Glovinia Street. We'd go up to Glovinia Street, they'd go back down to the bridge. They're a step ahead of us. Not saying that we can't handle it. I'm just saying it's not as easy as just deciding to do something about it. Our police, we have undercover officers over there. We have more patrols over there than any part of town. Now, Martin Luther King, you've been talking to us about that for a year now, and we are working on that. We hope to do a streetscape over there that will spruce that whole street up from one end to the other. Add sidewalks in places and repair the sidewalks that are there, put up some new street lights. We're working on that. And I appreciate you taking the time to come again. We will keep trying, and you come every month if you need to, and tell us what we're not doing.
Well, I
We're trying.
I want to address this. You said that like everywhere Greensboro having these problems. Yeah, Greensboro's a larger city.
And they got 5 times the police officers.
But here in Asheboro, you got an 8-mile radius. This is a small town. We should be able to combat this problem. I know Greensboro. I worked in Greensboro. I worked at A&T. I know how it works. I know the zones. But you ain't got enough people in these zones. I see it. I seen one police car today in Asheboro present. That's the only one I seen, and that was on 64. I'm saying we need to beef it up, find these hoodlums, and do what you got to do to them. Put them in jail, take them before the DA, and do what you got to do. But we cannot. What is it going to take? We already had a small child to get shot sitting on a young man's lap. So what is it going to take? A grandma to get killed? That's when we're going to react. All this killing can be stopped. This is unnecessary. This is an unnecessary cycle that these young people, I don't know where they're from. I wouldn't even speculate on it, but these young people have taken over Asheboro.
Actually, our police can tell you where they're from.
Well, I don't know, and I don't.
I can tell you that, Mayor, they're from Mount Gilead.
I don't. But the thing of it is, they need to be.
We have gang members up here recruiting 15
Right.
and 16-year-old kids.
Right, they need to be
They
dealt
want to
with.
be the baddest ass on the street.
So true.
We had an occasion recently where someone was shot, and it was on video, and of the 9 people standing there in the crowd, 8 or 9 people in the crowd, 5 or 6 of them pulled out weapons, pulled out handguns.
Oh, wow.
The whole crowd was packing.
Right.
And would you have, and I don't want to debate, but constitutional rights, would you have us search all those people with no probable cause?
Well, you got to have probable cause.
Everybody we run into, many people that our police interact with are packing.
Right.
So I'm not admitting defeat here. I understand. And we will continue, just as we always do, to work on it.
Right. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next? Anybody else? Anybody?
That's a tough act to follow.
Come on up, Al.
Yeah, I don't want to follow it, but our downtown Asheboro Inc. group is actually here just to answer any questions, following up the complaint on Fayetteville Street for the streetery, so.
Any questions?
I think it's a take it under advisement, evaluate, and see what coordination can come to accommodate all. I mean,
Okay.
I know that sounds like a trite answer, but that's really that's the step we're at.
I think you guys are aware of part of the issue from that event.
We are.
You know,
We are.
the
We've also
original-
made
The
some-
original concept is your building extended 50% of your occupancy, so you could have 50% inside, 50% outside, you know, and we just need to make sure that everybody understands that going forward, and that we don't spread out in front of somebody else's business. And
I think that's
we
been
take
clearly
the Fayetteville
conveyed.
Street issue under advisement.
Yeah, I think that's been clearly conveyed to the parties that
Okay.
had effect to that.
All right, we're
I'd
good.
like to add this before you get gone, though. I will say this, that, you know, the only folks that haven't had any setbacks or failures are those that's never tried anything. And I don't want this particular incident, as you know, as serious and concerned as it should be, to dampen the efforts and the progress that has been made, you know, towards continued revitalization of downtown, helping these restaurants and merchants have enough people in, you know, to sustain them. Your efforts are noticed, they're applauded. We will work through this.
Just like I said, we're here for any questions that may be directed from the council. We've taken notice of the specific complaints as regards to other businesses spreading out in front of adjacent businesses, and that shouldn't happen in the future.
That's it there.
Well, and it's addressable. It was unfortunate, but it's addressable.
Okay.
And as I spoke to the father of Emma, he's sat back there in the back, he called me up and I spoke to him and he goes, "What do we do?" And I said, "You know, the most important thing in any relationship, business or personal, is communication. You need to communicate with one another." And he mentioned the meeting that you had at the Flying Pig the other day, and that some compromise was made. And I was, well, hey, that's good. That's a step in the right direction, because if you guys talk to each other and you come up with some plan that you're all agreeable to, that's it. It's just communication. It's as simple as that. But communication is sometimes the hardest thing to do.
We've all dealt with enough events downtown over the years to know that rarely is the first one ever go off without a hitch.
Yeah.
It's nice when it does. We really enjoy it when it does, but, you know, that's usually when we figure out that, oh, yep, we forgot something.
Yeah.
And I can say that with multiple hats, and whether it's from a city standpoint, a chamber standpoint, or now our DAI. So, you know, we're fully aware, or I at least am fully aware, as y'all, that sometimes it's a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
So occasionally there's unintended consequences. Obviously,
That there are.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We'll move on. Thanks for being here, Rebecca, thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, and you're welcome to stay, I'm not asking you to leave. But I know from experience, you're not gonna stay all night.
Stay or you'll have any further use for us.
the thrill of the consent agenda is not to be underestimated.
That's right.
I've stayed in many board meetings, many council meetings, but if you do not need us, we will gladly bow out.
I know where you're going. Going back over to Lumen.
Off the record, sir, that is correct.
Cheers.
All right, moving on, if there's no one else that wishes to address the council, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Council members, is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is presented in your paperwork.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Burks to approve the consent agenda. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding, birthday girl. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Okay, item 8, Community and Strategic Initiative Planner David Putnam with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council is gonna make a presentation and have a couple of requests for us. Welcome, Mr. Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Asheboro City Council, for inviting me here today and present on this topic. Let me just fill out my name. Got to make sure you can read it. I do not have the best handwriting. So my role being here today is to really talk about two agenda items that are symbiotic, a resolution for adoption of the Part F application, and then also the adoption and approval of the update of the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. So I've prepared a brief memo, and let me pull it up. Apologize, I don't have it, a print version in front of me. But I just wanted to go over briefly, before we get into the PowerPoint, some of the context here. So in the summer of 2019, the city of Asheboro recognized the need to update their 20-year comprehensive Parks and Recreation Plan. They contracted, you guys contracted with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, who's my employer, to do this master plan update, or comprehensive plan update, if you will. About a year into that comprehensive plan update, we experienced significant delays due to COVID-19, and so we significantly reduced the work schedule to space out the momentum of the comprehensive plan update and ensure that the maximum public engagement was being utilized, that the maximum information collecting was being undertaken. And so that's why I'm here today. We have finally reached a point where we've got an excellent finished product here. It's some I'm missing a zero there. It's some 300 pages long that I've affixed to you guys' packet. And I would like to go over a little bit of the data that's included in that, a little bit of kind of the finished product and, what went on. So first off, I just briefly want to run through the table of contents with you all. This table of contents included a letter from the Cultural and Recreation Services Director, Mr. Jonathan Sermon, and it was followed by chapters 1 through 5, and you can see there they include the plan, purpose, and community overview, the existing facilities, trends, and local standards, and that's where we looked at state, national trends, and we tried to aggregate them all into this Parks and Recreation Plan. Then we dedicated an entirety of the chapter to community engagement. This is where we focused, as I mentioned before, a great deal of effort, making sure that we engaged the community and making sure that we collected the most responsible responses to maintain the integrity of that comprehensive plan. From there, we investigated the Parks and Recreation Plan recommendations. So we've developed an action table, and so the action table's got a kind of 5 columns, right? It's got the action step, the category that step is in. It's got the price, the estimated price, and I like to use a Yelp figure. I do $1 through $3 signs pretty much. And then it's got timetables estimated, and then the projected partners or responsible parties that might be involved in that. And then following that chapter, we have the Zoo City Sportsplex Master Plan. This was robust in size, right? And it's an element of that symbiotic agenda item that we've got today. And then that follows the rest of the comprehensive plan update, which is this appendix and references. I'm not going to read through all those. You can certainly see appendix A through H right there. It's robust in size. So next. So as I mentioned before, we deployed multiple engagement strategies to really activate the city of Asheboro's interest on this comprehensive plan update, and then to also engage the community and make sure that their voices were being heard. So what you see on this image is actually a postcard that we mailed to 1,000 households. We randomized the households in a specific neighborhood. We sent them snail mail. We sent them these postcards, and then we tried to engage the community with that tool. Unfortunately, we didn't have anyone out of those 1,000 homes respond to that, but we still got a really great turnout. We had some 463 survey respondents in the entirety of the survey activities, and that was during COVID too. So that's a pretty, like for me, that's a strong number. I'm proud of that number, but we're not done there, right? So that's one thing that you'll see in the memo. We're committed to getting this to a point even further than what it's at now. So another thing I want to mention is that we did, we developed a Parks and Recreation survey in both English and Spanish. It was one page, flipped front and back. We hosted open house workshops. We set out flyers. We had some focus groups that we deployed earlier this year, in fact. And so these are all different strategies that we use to engage the public. You can see here some additional examples. On the left is a Facebook post using that earned collateral that the city of Asheboro has generated through its years of activity as a leveraging tool to engaging the public. And then on the right is the English version, first page, mind you, of the survey that we used. And those are also, both the English and Spanish versions are included in the comprehensive plan update. Next slide. This is an element of the Zoo City Sportsplex section of the comprehensive plan update. As you can see, this is a Part F site plan. I just thought it was the, I guess, the most simplified yet digestible map of the Zoo City Sportsplex that we could offer. And I think it's a great tool to illustrate, you know, the size of that project, what's being proposed, the scale of what's happening here, and the asset that it's going to turn into. Next. So a part of the plan, I'm an analytics guy. I've always had an infatuation with Excel. I don't know why. I graduated with a Parks and Recreation degree. I never thought I'd be this into math. Certainly am not a mathematic, but I know how to work cells on Excel. So what I've devised here is a level of service tool that I like to provide. And the two key points here are that there are two standards that you can, communities, I mean, can really leverage themselves against and compare with communities of comparable size. And those two standards are typically jurisdiction size, right? How many people you have in that jurisdiction, and then budget size comparisons. And so I gave you the budget size column. We're not really going to use that, but I wanted to make sure that it's shown here so that if you wanted to adjust it later, you could. But the rest of the columns really lean on that jurisdiction size comparison. And so what's important here is if you look at the last two columns, and I know it's a lot of numbers and stuff, it's hard to just digest at a first look. But what's important is that we have level of service needs spaced out to 2020 and 2030. Through an algorithm that we've developed, we have identified that if the level of service need number is greater than 1, that is a facility that when you compare it to another comparable area, that is a facility that's not, you need to maybe add 1 or 2 more of. You know, it's not reaching the population, it's not reaching the level of population that other communities are currently reaching. So the standouts here in level of service need for 2020 are playgrounds. You guys have a reported of 7 playgrounds. We pulled that number from the Recreation Inventory Matrix that we worked with the Cultural and Recreation Service Department very closely on, and that's it. Now, if you jump over to the level of service need 2030, this plan is to be, it's a comprehensive plan. So we want this to be a tool that's not just sitting on a shelf. We want you guys to use this and pick it up maybe 5 years from now when you think about, hey, why don't we update this and make sure it's current? So we've spaced it out all the way to 2030, and that also helps with you guys' development for park and recreation facilities. These facilities include also the playgrounds under the assumption that that 7 number stays the same. It just goes up 0.1 point, right? But then it's also bringing in basketball courts, outdoor basketball courts specifically. That might be something that you guys want to look at. And then we also go down to recreation centers. It's at 2020, it's straddling that level of service need category. It's not quite there, it's at 0.973, but as soon as we get to 2030, if we follow the state demographer's estimations, we then reach 1.073. That's enough justification that you guys might want to think about deploying a new recreation center. another one to just be thinking about at that point. If you look down at that amphitheater facility, you're at 0.912, so it might be of value, but obviously there's a lot of variables that go into these decisions. This is just one tool. Thanks. And on a very similar note, you know, with level of service, we talked about comprehensive park and rec plan CIPs, right? The idea of, well, how are we financing these? How are we planning to financing these things? And so CIP was developed for this Parks and Rec plan. It was included in the Parks and Rec plan. And the upshots really from that CIP are that since 2001, you guys have been investing heavily in Parks and Recreation, and that is to be applauded, right? That is a great asset of the city of Asheboro. That is a quality of life indicator that many people look at, and that's just tremendous. Now, that number, $8,463,000 on 17 projects, that's great. That is a really good number. And then the CIP also covers 3 future park improvements in great detail, and these 3 park improvements are Peninsula Park and Lake Lucas, the David and Pauline Gerald, I hope I'm not butchering that last name,
That's right.
Center City Garden, and then finally the Zoo City Sportsplex, which is it's a very involved piece of this comprehensive plan. Thanks. So at this time, that concludes, I guess I would call it agenda item 8A, but I'm here to answer any questions. I thank you very much for your time. And then I believe I'm presenting on agenda item 8B as well.
Sir, before we leave, I want to thank David and the folks at PTRC for putting this together, and Jonathan Sherman back there and his team in Culture and Recreation Services. The entire document is on the city's website. You at home, the entire document's 157 pages. So the council tonight, you've just had a taste of it, a glimpse of the executive summary, if you will. If you want to read it in depth, you're welcome to. It's on the website. We got one copy of that here somewhere. I think John has it. There's the entire document. And I don't think anybody wants to stay here tonight.
All right, you're asking us to adopt this tonight.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of Mr. Putnam? Anybody?
I just commend the PTRC and the work David and his group did in gathering all that information. I scanned it some this afternoon. I didn't read all 150 pages. But I said, whoa, there's a lot of work, a lot of number crunching in that. That's quite an impressive document.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Sherman's here. Do we have any questions of Mr. Sherman regarding this document?
I've got a question that just, on your chart that had all the numbers,
Yes, sir.
does a low number indicate more of, it may be the same, lack of, underutilized or not popular, if there's a difference?
Could you repeat the first part of that? I'm sorry.
The low numbers, level of service needed.
Oh, okay.
Like a skate park, 0.309. We know we have some desirability things there. They don't want to wear their pads.
Right.
You know, so, maybe it could be utilized more, but they view it as undesirable. You know, swimming pools, do I take that as we have wonderful swimming pool facilities for a town our size, I feel like.
Absolutely.
So is that like we have excess capacity, or are they unpopular with a low number?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So the level of service calculation doesn't correlate directly with frequency, right? So that's, I think, where we need to be careful. So this isn't a tool to tell you how often people are using these facilities. This is a tool to describe, you know, are the number of facilities that we have for these categories, multi-purpose fields, dog parks, skate parks, swimming pools, are they meeting the population numbers that we have? Or, you know, conversely, if you guys want to translate it to meet the budget size comparisons, are they meeting the budget numbers that other communities of comparable size have, right? So, you know, it's a useful tool for planning those investments for identifying, well, you know, I'm just gonna use this because they're close by. Well, Greensboro's got 7 pools, we got 6 pools, we're tailing them in population. Well, why don't we put 7 in? Because then we'll meet the level of service need, right? So it's more identified for, you know, that capital improvement investment, the long term, if you will, of the Parks and Recreation outfit. Now, from frequency, there is a question in the survey where we did ask, you know, how do you recreate? And we, truthfully, we dedicated the whole second page of the survey to that. And so that is an extremely useful tool to comb through that data and then to really look at, you know, if you've got a specific question on skate parks, for instance, or what kind of facilities are being used, you can come through that data and really identify what you're looking for.
So this is like a per capita or a per budget sort of thing, not a per use sort of thing?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
It's a great way to describe it.
Any other questions? Are we prepared to adopt this plan tonight?
Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the grant application with Part F by reference.
Actually, he's got more information to give us on that.
Yeah, Mayor, I think the motion would first.
We want to adopt the comprehensive Parks and Recreation Plan, item A.
Let's adopt that first then.
Please.
I move we adopt the plan.
All right, got a motion to adopt the comprehensive 2021 Comprehensive Parks and Recreation Plan. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Putnam, item B.
Well, long time no chat. I appreciate you guys, you know, again, I can't thank you enough for inviting me here to present to Asheboro City Council. Item B, as I mentioned before, it's a very symbiotic relationship to item A. This is a resolution to apply for Part F funding up to $500,000. Part F is Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. This $500,000 application will go towards the Zoo City Sportsplex. And so that resolution is outlined in your letterhead, and I've got a copy here. If you've got any questions, please let me know.
Is 500 the max?
$500,000 is the maximum.
Okay.
In your experience, and I know it's an application based on point scoring and whatnot, in your experience, our application look pretty good in terms of what we don't have, what we're trying to provide with this money and scoring points.
Absolutely. I do think it looks good. I think you guys are a very competitive candidate. I won't get into too much detail. If you want to go back to the level of service slide, I promise I'll get out of here soon. I promise.
We got no soccer fields. We got no dog parks. We got no multi-purpose fields.
Exactly.
A lot less than ones.
No facilities south of US 64.
That's right.
So our points would probably look pretty good on this application.
I definitely think you guys are scoring high on this application.
Great.
So,
Clark, now's the time.
Now I will make the motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the grant of Part F funds.
Okay, have a motion by Mr. Bell to approve a resolution to apply for North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Putnam. Good work. Jonathan, I appreciate you, your long hours in facilitating his work and getting, I am somewhat disappointed that you mailed out 1,000 cards, individual cards, and didn't hear from any of those people.
I know, it was really heart-wrenching. We did use, though, a local mailer. I worked very closely with the Community Development Department, so we put the money for that mailing into the city of Asheboro.
Well, you know, it's just, you would think out of 1,000 randomly selected cards. Somebody out there would be interested in a soccer field or a new swimming pool or a water park or, you know, something.
You should have put on the cover of it, water rate increase. Call Debbie Reeves.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Putnam. Look forward to using your services again.
Thank you, guys.
You will shepherd this application, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we don't get it, we blame you?
I'm the
All right.
guy.
Okay, thanks, sir. I know you've done a lot of work on this, and Jonathan, thank you. Okay, Mr. Luck, I will, open a public hearing for case number RZ 21-02. Planning and Zoning Administrator Justin Luck will describe the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments. Have at it, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and council. I hope you all are doing well. So tonight, we will formally introduce our text amendments to the zoning ordinance to become in compliance with changes at the state level, North Carolina General Statutes 160D, and also federal case law related to sign regulations. I know Mr. Nuttall back in January spoke with you all a little bit about 160D and try to introduce the changes it was making and kind of how that process came about. So I'm not going to reiterate that tonight. I'm going to talk about kind of our process in getting this point with the text amendments and really 4 of the biggest changes that will happen to our zoning ordinance in coming in compliance with 160D and the federal case law. So the first of those is that to be in compliance with 160D, 160D in itself is a reorganization of the state land use chapter. And in doing so, we're planning to reorganize our zoning ordinance. As you'll see on the left-hand side of this chart, this will be our new ordinance. It'll be 10 chapters. It'll start with definitions and then go down through the watershed protection. As part of this reorganization, there will be some technical corrections and small changes. However, like 160D, which was primarily reorganization, not significant changes, our reorganization will be in the same matter. Part of the reason for doing this is you'll see our existing ordinance chapters. Our ordinance is a little bit all over the place. And I think a lot of that it has to deal with the last major last major change to the zoning ordinance was around 1992. So you have, roughly 30 years of text amendments that have been made. We've had new overlay districts adopted. We've had new uses adopted, new supplemental regulations for those uses. So we've ended up with things a little bit everywhere. Like for uses or for districts, we'll have Article 200 deals with districts. And then we have 200A, which is an overlay district. And then we have 2 other overlay districts, which are in Article 300A. And Article 300A also contains our performance and design regulations, and it also contains supplemental use regulations. And then there are more supplemental use regulations in the notes to the table of uses. So this effort will help to consolidate everything related to administration in one chapter, everything related to districts, overlay districts in one chapter, and so on and so forth. So that's the first big change. Again, no really significant change to the text in this reorganization, and we're carefully tracking kind of what goes where, but it is simply just reorganizing. And I like to describe them as they're very similar in their purpose. The end result is very similar. The purpose of conditional use zoning we have now is to provide some flexibility for developers, but also ensure that development is compatible with neighboring land uses. The end result is that on our zoning map, you will have a designation of conditional use B2, and you'll have a conditional use permit, which has permitted uses and land use restrictions, so on and so forth. The end result of conditional zoning will be the same. You'll have a B2CZ designated on the map. There will be a site plan approved. There will be conditions specific to that property. But to get to that point, different process. And we are codifying a couple changes that are new to our process specifically. One of those is a pre-application conference with staff before filing an application for conditional zoning. Applicants will be required to meet with staff and discuss their project. Typically that happens anyway, but we're just codifying because of the complexities of conditional zoning. Before a proposal goes to planning board and council, we get to try to guide the applicant at the staff level. It will also require notice by the applicant prior to the planning board meeting. So while a lot of things will be similar to council, you'll be seeing a site plan, you'll be hearing conditions. It's going to be different for the planning board. Traditionally now with the conditional use zoning, planning board hears just the legislative part, the district change, and then council hears the legislative change, and then they also hear the permit. Planning board doesn't hear the permit, they don't review site plans. This will be a change for them. So now they will be more involved in the site plan review and review of the conditions. And we want to planning board as a means to get more. So we're requiring the applicant to mail notice of the planning board hearing in the hope of more discussion, more involvement at the planning board level, which hopefully will result in a more agreed upon, complete plan that will be heard by. Yes, sir.
That potentially, positively or negatively, affect the, our usage of the consistency statement.
I don't want to interfere with you, Mr. Loeb.
Go ahead if you'd like.
If this is not the right time to ask that.
No. So it's this whole thing, all questions are wide open and appropriate. Consistency statement is still very much in play. And in fact, the conditional zoning component of this ordinance specifically mandates that be adopted for it to explain why you either accepted or rejected the zoning district. And if you don't mind, Mr. Luck, I'll just go ahead and say one of the things that comes up without getting too much into the weeds, conditional use zoning and permits came about initially as a way to deal with judicial concerns about contract zoning and avoiding that, so you have the quasi-judicial process. The courts have become more acclimated, the state courts have become acclimated and accepting of the fact that you can engage in reaching, and the ordinance will say, any conditions attached to this site plan have to be mutually accepted. So there is a give and take back and forth, but in order to make sure that it's not an impermissible extortion or the sort of contract zoning that the courts are always worried about, it states that you have to make sure those conditions relate to the proposed development. They have to relate to the adopted comprehensive plans and any other land use policies or policies or plans that the city has, so you tie it into that. To show that you're getting that connection, the consistency statement plays a vital role in that.
And I applaud the portion where more and earlier preview is better for all parties, but it's communication. Surprises at the last minute in front of us are always bad for everyone. You know, and I feel like hopefully this will be a good thing, because we sometimes get into things that are discovered, uncovered, talked about that weren't necessarily addressed at the planning board, and maybe they approved or disapproved or said, yeah, and we have to not be consistent with them, and then the burden of having good, valid cause, evidence, that sort of thing for it. So I'm as concerned about it being more burdensome to overturn the planning board if for some legitimate reason. And then I'm also, relieved that we'd have more information and that may not be necessary, so.
Your points are all well taken, and I'll just add, and I'll stay out of the way, Mr. Luck, that the fundamental difference is the conditional use permit was quasi-judicial. With conditional zoning, it's not. It's legislative. So the ethical impact is, I think, is pretty significant and
You
helpful.
said the new conditional now is legislative,
It's
not
legislative.
Worry about, conversation ahead of time with developers.
Precisely. I think that's where it's a much more, it's a much more reasonable approach. It doesn't put you in a
'cause
position.
nothing, I can't talk to you about this.
You have no with the legislative process, just like any other item that comes up, whether it be the budget or some other policy decision, say, I can engage in this conversation and discuss with you. And that's one of the reasons, and the reason I bring that up is, one, I think it's a helpful thing for the governing board, it helps you, but two, I think it also explains why the conditional zoning ordinance mandates that the applicant, when they address the planning board, has to tell the planning board about the fact that you get notices, that you try to provide notices to adjoining property owners, and secondly, report on communications that you've had between property owners and you over this application, so the planning board can hear it, and it's a way of trying to legislatively build some of that due process in, where you can have an airing, like you mentioned earlier with a different issue. Communication's vital. Trying to get that communication to happen, but just outside the context of a quasi-judicial hearing.
That's good, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Jeff really covered the third point, and that is the significant change that is, as we switch, we will be going from a quasi-judicial CUP to a legislative conditional zoning. So that kind of wraps up the process changes. I do want to talk about some requirements that will relatively, there is one kind of significant change as we're proposing as we make this transition. So as you're accustomed to now with a CUP, you will review a site plan. That will stay with conditional zoning. And the purpose of that site plan is to demonstrate compliance with the predetermined underlying zoning regulations. Part of the CUP requires that you meet the standard zoning regs, and then council has the ability to add on top of that are more restrictive, like buffers, parking, landscaping, so on and so forth. The difference we're proposing with conditional zoning is that not only may the conditions added may modify in a more restrictive manner, they may also modify in a less restrictive manner. And they can do that in respect to the zoning classification, which would mean it's possible that council could approve a use that's typically not permitted in a district. And it's also possible to be less restrictive in terms of land use requirements. So for example, council could approve a site plan that has a reduction in the required parking, that has a reduction in landscaping or buffering and so on and so forth. So that's really the big change that may happen with this conditional zoning as we have. So, you know, if you want to think about it in essence, you know, it's like a variance. In fact, in our proposed language, you know, the intent of the conditional zoning is that you don't need a variance, that this plan can be approved with conditions that are standards that meet the underlying predetermined standards. In some ways, that site plan may be more restrictive. Maybe they're offering an additional buffer. In other ways, it may be less restrictive, a use that's not permitted in that district. So it does allow a lot more flexibility that council can approve a proposal that in some ways may meet the standards, in other ways it may be more restrictive, in other ways it may be less restrictive.
I like
Any
that
questions
a lot.
about that?
The bar is high, as it should be. It's cumbersome, it's difficult, it's the whole 9 yards, you know, and there's rarely a case that meets it properly, in my opinion. But oftentimes there's things that change that maybe not variance. I like.
Yeah. I think with your experience on the planning board and council, I can think of several projects, but just one is, you know, the Old Town Village, how that original plan, the dwellings, but also they wanted to have like a little coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that in a residential district? Well, we had to make a specific text amendment, and then that text amendment gets tucked in the ordinance somewhere. Now, if this with this proposal, someone could make a proposal like Old Town Village, not need to amend the zoning ordinance, but through the conditional zoning, they could, that is not permitted in that district, council could approve that, and they can propose, some additional measures to help mitigate any concerns that may come about with having a use that's not typically permitted in that district.
That's a great example.
Before I move on, any other questions about conditional zoning? All right, the next big change is related to reasonable accommodation. As Mr. Mavi just mentioned about variance, strict and how high the standards are. What this reasonable accommodation addition to the ordinance will do is it will allow the Board of Adjustment reasonable accommodations under the Federal Fair Housing Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Rehabilitation Act. This will operate in a manner similar to a variance. It is a quasi-judicial hearing. Unlike the variance, it's a supermajority. This will be approval, and there will also be no filing fee. However, it will be advertised per state law and held in that quasi-judicial standard. Rather than that someone must meet for a variance, the board will base their on the criteria of reasonable and necessary, and those are defined in the text. So a standard example is, someone may want to construct a handicap ramp. That ramp may need to be constructed in a setback. This will provide a new method that someone can apply and go through to construct something that typically you need a variance for, but this is a lesser, easier, affordable standard for someone to meet, to construct something that doesn't meet the zoning ordinance, but accommodate for reasonable and necessary disability. And significant change that will be coming to the zoning ordinance is related to signs. This is less so related to 160D, more so related to a Supreme Court case, which is Reed versus Town of Gilbert. This is a case that came out of Arizona. The Town of Gilbert was found to be infringing on First Amendment free speech. Sign ordinance regulated is specifically temporary sign. There were different size requirements, number requirements, length, duration requirements for temporary. What type of sign it was, and essentially what that sign said. Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. That your regulations need to be content neutral or they're subject to strict scrutiny. So, in keeping with that, over the last really several years, we've gone to multiple conferences, webinars, and have been working with other towns and seeing how this has changed sign regulation across the country. And we have steadily been working on building a new sign ordinance, and was built upon a framework from the International Association. And the goal of this new sign ordinance is content neutral. So, some proposed changes you will see in this sign ordinance are a simplified sign table. Gone will be the days of construction sign, real estate sign, just plain political sign. These signs that are defined by what they say, they're defined by their message. And these will be replaced with sign types we have now: pole sign, monument sign, wall sign. And they will be different requirements based on the district the sign's proposed to be in. But it will be less sign types because we're going away from message and we're just dealing with type of sign, where it's located, how big it can be, how tall it can be, how many you can have, and that's it.
Well, as long as these signs still meet and comply with the ones I currently own for this coming year, I'll entertain support.
Another way this table will be simplified is right now built on You'll get a height bonus or an area bonus if you're on said street. You'll get an area bonus if you're so far off the road. You'll get an area bonus if your wall is so big. What we're really proposing to do with this is to eliminate those formulas and really just go with kind of your standard largest, what you could have if you meet all those bonuses. So in general, I think in this sign table, you will see taller, larger signs. And we're open to discussing that. I think another change we'll see is how we regulate temporary signs. Our existing ordinance is very rigid. It basically envisions every temporary sign to be a banner, and it says it can be this square feet and this tall, and that's that. Realistically, we know everybody likes to do different types of signs, whether they be balloons, flags, streamers, pennants. So what this will allow is basically aggregate total square footage allotment for a certain period of time, a certain amount of times per year, for temporary sign flexibility.
Include the gorilla.
Including gorillas, as long as it meets height and area, you can have your gorilla. Another change will be election period signs. In this case, again, trying to be content neutral, we're really not looking at, are these signs for political candidates, or are they, saying vote for this? We're looking at the time frame, and we're saying during this election time frame, property owners are allowed to have additional signage without a permit. These signs can say something related to office, or they could say, Chicken Supremes. We're not really getting into the content of the sign. We're just saying that during this period of time, additional signage is allowed. One way that it seems to allow some differences, or looking at, you can differentiate between commercial and non-commercial speech. So we are proposing that for non-commercial speech, basically you can have in each district a certain number, certain size of signs for non-commercial speech at any time throughout the year, no permit required. And that's specifically for non-commercial. And, we intend to interpret that as just informational. And these could be advertising, hey, this property, hey, so-and-so company's repairing my roof. Or it could be, this is who I support, what have you. But basically, it will allow signs without a permit throughout the year to a certain height and area, extent, and number. Last big distinction, right now our ordinance is very geared towards on-premise signs versus off-premise signs. Our proposal will not differentiate between that as much. Basically, what our ordinance will do is say, okay, you're in B2, you have this size monument sign you can have. What you put on that sign is up to you. As long as it meets the height, area, and number restrictions, advertise your business, you could advertise someone else's business, put your personal non-commercial speech on it. So it will allow more flexibility for how people can use their allotment of signage.
We used to have, maybe we currently still do, hence the change, but two categories. One was an identifier, like if you're Joe's Bank, you could have a great old big sign that said Joe's Bank on your building. But if you wanted to say Joe's Bank has money for 2%, if it was an advertisement as opposed to an identifier, then it shrank a lot. Because that was back when we a lot of conversations about, I was hoping we'd have more need actually, but for tall identifier signs like that on the interstate, that sort of thing. So, or it sounds to me like you're cleaning, you got X amount of square feet, if you want to advertise hot dogs 2 for $1, then that's what you say.
Yep. Or if you want to advertise, your neighbor has hot dogs 2 for $1, you can do that as well. Or if you want to advertise,
10 more miles to the border.
Yeah, or if you want to advertise vote XYZ, you could do that as well, as long as you're within your height, area, number limitations.
This during
Not sure
temporary
that's
signs.
wise, but okay.
Election period signs. Does this mean that a couple months leading up to a general election, that we're gonna have a proliferation of, going out for business, bankruptcy type signs down the highway, or
Well,
furniture, you know, the little yard signs?
That sounded like a slippery slope to me as well.
That we're gonna have a 2 or 3 month period where signs are popping up everywhere and we can't do anything about it.
there'll still be some limitations on election period signage, and there still will be some regulations regarding signs in the right-of-way. Now, the state preempts us in some ways when it comes to election signs in the right-of-way, I think as y'all are familiar with. But, so there will be some restrictions on the amount you can have, but as far as what they say.
My concern is when we have somebody put up 100 signs on Dixie Drive advertising a going out for business sale that looks like a going out of business sale. And those signs pop up every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 3 months. You know, never goes out of business. You know, and they're a dozen at every intersection and 10 down the highway between the intersections. We're gonna make that a lot easier, aren't we? Especially during election period.
Especially if state right-of-ways.
Yeah. Right-of-ways, I think we can still regulate the right-of-ways, and the sign ordinance the proposal's kind of laid out that basically no signs other than government signs are permitted in the right-of-way. So hopefully we can still address temporary signs that pop up in the right-of-way, and even those temporary signs that do get permits, they have to be on private property. So I think we will still be able to control the right-of-ways.
But doesn't state law allow political signs in the right-of-way?
That is, yeah, that's something.
Where are you going with that?
Yeah, Jeff, maybe.
Big surprise. Written by politicians for politicians.
I would never begin to state or take a position on whether a state statute is constitutional or not. I will state that the state statute is right for judicial challenge. So they're based on the U.S. Supreme Court's decision, recognizing that that's all dependent if some party wants to take the matter to court and let a court rule on whether or not it's constitutional. The city takes the approach in the proposed language that the way it approaches or is proposed to approach it is subject to all applicable federal and state law, only government signs are allowed in the public right-of-way. Public government signs are defined. Then it states, except as specifically permitted in that section, no signage is allowed in the public right-of-way. So when you put it all together, if it's not a government sign, it's not allowed in the public right-of-way. That way it covers anything DOT may authorize, like for informational restaurants, something like that on certain types of highways. I will say the reference to federal law is designed specifically to deal with where we've had issues come up with bankruptcy. Because if the bankruptcy court authorizes someone to liquidate the assets as part of that proceeding, we've had challenges where it has been raised that federal law preempts our zoning ordinance, and to the degree they're limiting their signs to their own property, there's some traction to that. Don't think federal law authorizes you to go on other premises to do it. But that's all taken care of in the proposed text by saying, we'll deal with those issues and evaluate them depending on the applicable federal or state law. Subject to those laws, no signs in the right-of-way other than the government signs. So that's how it happened in the election period. That's where the state statute comes in and will control what happens.
I'm gonna go with it's not gonna make it to that high court 29 November.
I would not, that's why we're going to be compliant with following the state law, but just recognizing its limitations.
Yep, this is the last thing.
All right. Let's,
I'll defer to learning counsel.
let's move on into the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to address the council regarding these proposed amendments to the planning and zoning or the zoning ordinance text? Okay. Mr. Luck, do you have some
comments to wrap up?
Yep, I'll show you guys the anticipated schedule for this. So ongoing, we've been working on these amendments for the last several months. Planning Board began reviewing these in March, and I went through the things I highlighted tonight in pretty good detail with them Monday. So we're hopeful we'll get some feedback from them. And we'll meet with them again and discuss it further next month. The council level, we wanted to introduce it tonight. Our goal is you'll hear it again next month. You'll receive text to review, which should be near final draft. And then the goal is to approve this in June to adopt the new ordinance and set a July 1 effective date. So with that said, we are pretty far along in our text. We'd be happy to take your feedback, meet with you, discuss signs, conditional zoning, any questions, all of your input's welcome. So Mayor, staff recommendation is to continue this to the regular May meeting.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, real quick, I'll just say, as you seek comments, which I certainly hope happens, comments from the public, relevant industries, people affected, it would be helpful just as far as context, particularly on the sign regulation. It's always dangerous to oversimplify, but I'm going to attempt to do it anyway. When you get down to the sign regulations, it's the exceptions that will wreck a municipal ordinance when you try to apply that Supreme Court precedent. Because as soon as you make an exception, you generally have to read the sign to figure out the content as far as why you're making the exception. Then if you use that content to make an exception, you've just subjected the legislation to strict scrutiny, which generally we lose. So if you see a court opinion come out and it starts talking about the legislation is subject to strict scrutiny, there's a better than even chance the government loses in that case, because it's really difficult to narrowly tailor the legislation to meet a compelling governmental interest. And so if one sign is okay, why is it that you're letting another have different regulations, either restricting more or going more favorable? So I'll just say, if at times it seems like we're going out of our way in this proposal to make it as generic as possible and just stay to time period, number of signs, location of signs, dimensional issues, it is a concerted effort because it's the exceptions that we have such trouble trying to work around.
Size, type, and location's about it.
Yeah.
And I've long advocated the easing of our sign ordinance, knowing that's a slippery slope. I think we've been very prohibitively specific in a number of areas, but, so it's like the conditional use progress, although the burden and responsibility on us per applicant, but, as much as given, that sort of thing, but we'll try to use it judiciously.
And as staff too, we'll try to do our best to inform council. This is where this plan meets the ordinance. This is where it's differing, and so you know where this ordinance is in, where this proposal is in compliance, where it's more restrictive, where it's less restrictive.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to continue this discussion to the next board meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. This item is continued to the next scheduled board meeting.
Good job.
Thank you all.
Chief Lineberry. Sorry to make you wait. You need to be out fighting crime.
Oh, yeah. We were allowed to.
It was a lot better in here.
Before you get started, let me tell you that I appreciate your efforts on the east side a week ago on Friday night. That was 3 hours of a Friday. I think were well spent. Appreciate you putting that together and having the patience to listen to all that. We definitely have a problem with gun violence and young people violence. I
just gotta tell you, I'm thankful Plummer Street's not in the city limits.
Yes, that's
But in the end, it's all Asheboro. And while the sheriff got that call, 100 yards, it could have been your call.
that's right. City limits. It matters.
Yep. So, I appreciate your work, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me, council members, Mr. Ogburn. I'll be pretty brief. Let's see, do we have somebody working?
He got it behind you.
You got it. You can keep up, I'm sure. I'd like to just start out, I think everyone has their annual report, a copy of that. Karen Henley, my assistant, does a great job putting all that together and pulling those numbers. But just 2020 calls for service, as you see, we're down a little bit, 24,656 total. Year before, 25,453. Year before, 26. I think some of that this year was definitely due to COVID, especially when the first stay-at-home orders and things. You could tell people had about a good month or 6 weeks in them. Calls went down and then they started to pick back up. But that's our total calls for the year 2020. And of course, Friday is the busiest day and Sundays are the least busy. The next page, this is our part 1 offenses. And if you look at over on the right side, you have the 3-year comparison. As you can see, in 2020, believe it or not, we went down in every category. In part 1 are your serious crimes. We went down in every category, which is great. However, the violence that everybody's reading about and hearing about in the first quarter of 2021, where it's 4 homicides, that makes everything like, you know, the violence is on the rise. I will say it has been 9 homicides within a 22-month period. So, and like I said, 4 this year. And 7 of those 9 happened within a half mile from, say, MLK at Loach Street. So it is predominantly in the east side. But overall, things did decline in all the Part 1 offenses. Moving to the next slide. This talks about our response time, and y'all have heard me say before, we like to have response times at 5 minutes or less, and we was 5 minutes and 5 seconds. And the upper, you'll see pre and route, that is usually the time that 911 is on the phone with the caller. If it is a call of a serious nature, usually the 911 operator will start typing in things. All our police cars have the in-car computers, and they'll start seeing the data come even before he or she dispatches the call sometimes. So if it is a serious call, a lot of times your officers will start that way even before she gets done on just the limited data that 911 will supply. But our travel time is just a little over 5 minutes to the calls. The next slide is our most common arrest offenses. Failure to appear seems to always lead, and that's for the folks that, for whatever reason, don't go to court on their court date to get the process issued on them, and their next time is a trip before the magistrate, and a lot of times they'll get a secure bond on the next round. But that, you can see 513 arrests for failure to appear. The next is drug charges, and then larceny, assaults, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of property, and then your driving while impaired was 167 for the year 2020. As you can see, arrests in 2020 are also down. And again, you could probably, not totally COVID, but naturally with the COVID, we have to have people to answer the calls. So we you pull back a little bit, only arrest the most serious offenders, and then just so we can keep our people hopefully answering the calls or the 911 that comes in.
Chief, how do you handle, like, a lot of these overlap? You know, you have a B&E and you have a larceny, and you got them in two different categories here.
Right.
Or you got a drug charge and you got drug paraphernalia, which are categorized differently. Do you put them in one or the other, or put them in both?
Sometimes some officers may charge the larceny and not charge the possession. Like if you stole it naturally, then you possessed it.
Right.
But some officers just do the larceny, some may do the stolen, and that's kind of how a lot of it. Drugs, if you got paraphernalia, you know, some may do both, some may, you know, because you got to have drugs to get the paraphernalia charges, you well know, but and then some officers may charge, you know, one or the other, or they may rate both.
So it's reflected in both categories?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. All right, next slide. This is our drugs seized. 2020, cocaine, and this is in grams. 688 grams of cocaine seized in 2020, which is down from the year before, up from the other, but I think I explained last time, sometimes you may, Basin Narcotics or Patrol may do a stop and get a large quantity out of a car, like a trafficking amount, and that way the numbers always change every year. And then, of course, it also has to do with what's the drug being used the most, and as you can see, marijuana is high, and meth and heroin was pretty high. Heroin was 1,570 grams, which is way up from the year before, but in just under 2018. And then prescription pills, as you see, up from 2019, but way down from 2018. So a lot of times they choose what's the easiest to get and what's the cheapest.
All as any other marketing plan.
The next slide is our traffic crash data. As you can see, Dixie Drive still leads with 542. Now, next year, we will see if that will drop some due to the new road. Fayetteville Street is second with 300 crashes. The Interstate, 61, Salisbury Street, and then followed with 49. That's your top accident locations. And that's 60% of all the crashes took place at those top 5 places. As you can see, Dixie Drive, 245 of them is in parking lots. Naturally, with all the places to shop, those would be high like that. Overall, probably what, 200, a little over 200 wrecks, less wrecks in 2020 than 2019. This slide is animal control. Some of the animal control have quit and moved on to other jobs. We've hired another one, he's probably been on the job for 4 months now, and then we're just currently working through another one in the process, so we'll be back to 2 animal control officers here within this month, I would think. But in 2020, the whole police department received 1,327 animal-related calls for service. Welfare check of animals was number 1 at 578. Running at large, was 481, and then animals picked up, and that's total animals, not by, it may be broke down further in your books, but it was 495. Any questions about the year-end report?
Questions?
I would like to say while I'm under the spotlight here, and go on record that I disagree with Mr. Armstrong's assessment of my job performance. However, I do agree.
So do I.
Oh, thank you. I do agree that there is too much shooting and there is too much killing, and it is concentrated, or seems to be, on the east side. However, we had a shooting this evening, no one struck, and it was in North Asheboro. But for the most part, it's concentrated on the east side. I don't turn a blind eye to it. As I said in the community meeting, first thing I do, I look in the mirror at myself. What am I doing? And I do hold my people accountable, and I don't run a good old boy agency. I hold them accountable, and I think we should hold the people that commit crimes accountable. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you for allowing me to be the police chief.
Thank you for your service. What's your staffing level right now? You down a few officers?
We're down one officer, counting the 4 that we've got in the trainee program.
One of
And
them's a former fireman, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
I stole one from Chief's son, Willie there. And so he there's some jokes about firemen and police, but anyway, we won't get into that. But those 4 will graduate in May, and then we'll get them in the field training. And then I've got some retirement coming up, or potential retirement. I have Captain Thompson is retiring, and so that's one short. And we've got a process open right now trying to get some people that's certified. That's sometimes hard to do. I plan on running another trainee process. It may happen before January, but definitely around January of next year, because we project retirements every year, and I have 3 SROs all plan to retire in June of 2022. And all of them is over the age of 50, and 2 of them's done their 30 full years. And so we definitely, if we get that trainee program started in January, then we've got them in field training by about the retirement date for those officers.
Well, unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast that every time, you lose a lot of experience. You get people that get their time, or almost get their time, and retire. And right now, I understand you're having a hard time filling the classes.
We do. High Point sent 4 or 5, and then we sent 4. I don't know how many. I am going to teach the next week down there firearms, so I'll get to see how many's in there. And then I heard the night class, they haven't had a night class in quite some time, and right now it's only sitting on 4, so they won't have that unless it grows. But I did hear they had some interest in day school. Looks like it will go again in August. And I heard that High Point was sending 10 to 12 recruits. So, and they just send their people to a community college, and they choose Randolph for whatever reasons, and that's where they send their recruits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That issue that you and I talked about, Russ Smith called the guy
Okay.
right away. I mean,
Okay, I hope that should have got handled. I'm thinking.
yeah, I feel like it has been.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
No questions, but the last time you were here speaking before us, I was complaining about loud mufflers, and I don't know if it's just the rise in gas prices, they just don't lay on the accelerator as much now, but it's much more quiet around my house.
I thought I probably handled.
But we'll give you the credit for it.
Okay, well,
All
I
right,
appreciate it.
all right.
Yeah,
So-
I appreciate it.
I
don't know if that's the reason, but that's.
There's a whole new group of folks that are running that stop sign by my house where they think it's a yield merge.
They're sitting at home shooting people.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not out riding around anymore.
Well, yeah, today, as I was leaving to come here tonight, it was a blue Honda SUV of some sort, and they ran the stop sign, and they had a kid out one window and a kid sitting on the other, in the back seats, and they were just all sitting up there, just proud as they could be, just yelling, running the stop sign.
Is that coming down the hill?
You usually park up on Celeste, and you can watch them go by.
I used to.
And there's a blue and white Mustang too that likes to get up to about 60 before it gets to my driveway as it runs the stop sign. But it's just entertainment for me out there.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Anyway, thank you.
Wayne, are you out there? Assistant City Engineer Wayne Smith, you have 11A is a budget amendment authorizing rehabilitation and updating of the runway lighting at Asheboro Regional Airport.
Yes, sir. Let me sign in for 1 second, please. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. It's my pleasure to represent the Engineering Department tonight. Last year, the Asheboro Regional Airport was selected to receive funding from the North Carolina Division of Aviation for the upgrade of our runway and taxiway lighting from incandescent to LED system. 1 month ago, we received notice of the award for construction funds to be made available for this project. Our consulting engineer expects to request permission and receive permission from the state within the next 2 weeks to advertise this project for bid. Following that, the consultant expects to have bids in hand by early May. John, can I bring up the illustration? I've received this illustration from W.K. Dixon, our consulting engineer, and to point out the 4 areas that will be addressed for improvements. Firstly, we will look at removal of all the incandescent runway and threshold lighting, all of which is shown in yellow. These will be replaced with LED fixtures that will be typically white and amber in color. Also, we will be removing the existing incandescent fixtures on the taxiway lighting system shown in blue. This will be replaced with LED fixtures and lamps illuminated in blue to show the taxiways. Additionally, we are removing all of the incandescent directional signage at the airport to be replaced with LED fixtures. The LED fixtures will provide brighter illumination at less power consumption, and all of the wiring will also be replaced. The estimated cost for this project is $1.2 million, for which the City of Asheboro is responsible for a 10% match. You have in your packets 2 budget amendments prepared by our finance director for the required match, and engineering staff recommends adoption by reference.
So this will be all new wiring, conduits, controls?
I'm not certain at this point if we're doing direct bury cable or cable in conduit. That's a question I have asked of the.
Certainly they would do conduit.
I can't answer that at this point.
What would determine?
Okay.
Sorry.
Other questions?
I've asked and haven't gotten a clear answer on that, sir. I'm sorry.
I'll entertain a motion to approve by reference.
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinances by reference, change in the ordinance by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Burks, discussion?
And that is for both ordinances?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
The conduit is a fundamental question. Now we can call for a vote.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Both amendments are approved. Item 11B, you're going to tell us about a $10,000 grant for a EV charger.
Yes, sir. Electric vehicle charging grant, the city has received, has been awarded a grant to install 2 level 2 electric vehicle charging ports with the intention to locate them behind City Hall in the parking lot. This grant is for $10,000 and will cover most of the $10,500 estimated cost for installation. The chargers are expected to be open to the public and maintained under contract for a period of 5 years. The manufacturer and the service provider is ChargePoint, and they are the most popular electric vehicle charging station manufacturer. The city will need to determine the operational requirements and the pricing requirements for use, and that will be an item for further discussion.
We're talking about 2 tandem units or
That's
one
both.
unit with 2?
One unit.
One unit
I'm,
with 2 plugs?
no,
2
sir.
plugs.
No, sir. Two units.
2 of these units?
Yes, sir.
So it's 4 plugs, or is that one?
That's right. And and the parking spaces to go with that.
So 4 places, two bollards with 2 plugs on each one?
Right.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
So I won't have to stand in line.
Y'all need enough electrical?
Okay, questions? All right, no action required, right? Okay.
No, sir.
Wayne, thank you. Appreciate it very
My
much.
pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank
you. Michael Roney. Water Resource Director Michael Roney will summarize the bids and request the award of contracts for 12A is 7 chemicals needed for Water Resource Division for April 21 to April 22. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I will try to be very brief tonight. The city received bids for chemicals for treatment purposes at the water and wastewater treatment plant on March 9th of 21. These bids are required for us to buy the chemicals responsible for treating our water and wastewater. The contract, our purchase contract, always runs from April 16th to April 15th of the next year. So this current bidding contract will run from April 16th of 21 to April 15th of 2022. We received 15 bid packages there for 7 chemicals. There are really only 3 chemicals in this bid package that are over the threshold for formal bidding, but we like to lump them all into the bidding process to make our purchasing easier. Therefore, we've received these bids, and all the apparent low bids are in the bid summary. And staff recommends approval of the purchase contracts for these chemicals. Liquid alum to CNS Chemicals for $286 a ton. Liquid caustic to Univar for $374 a ton. Fluoride to Univar for $363 a ton. Sodium hypochlorite, or our bleach, to Univar for 69 cents per gallon. Calcium nitrate, that's our odor control chemical, to Cape Fear Water Solutions for $2.0899 per gallon. Sodium permanganate to Americhem Corporation for $8.06. And we are trying something new with calcium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide slurry blend to Polytech for $1.32 a gallon. And I'm requesting, I'll be glad to answer the questions, but requesting approval of these purchase contracts.
These much higher than last year, they don't?
They are right on schedule for last year. Some actually went down $1 or $2, one went up $1 or $2, the rest are right in line, so no significant change.
About 10, I can remember that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, your request was?
To approve purchasing these.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. If there are no questions, motion to approve this recommendation for purchase.
Mayor, I move we award the contract to purchase as recommended.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Moffitt. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 12B, wastewater treatment plant clarifier basin painting and rehab.
Yes, Mayor. The city has had this project done. We've been working on this project for a while. The base bid includes recoating the concrete interior wall for clarifiers, the final clarifiers 1 and 2. These clarifiers have been in since the plant was constructed in 1960. They're starting to show a little age, and we just want to keep them where they're operating for a long time. But the base bid includes painting, coating the interior wall of the tank, carrying over the weir wall into the trough. It also includes painting the metal rake structure, the center metal column, and the metal bridge and decking that we access to go across to get our samples. There were 2 additive alternatives just to see what we could do. Preliminary clarifier number 7 was installed in the 1996 upgrade. The concrete structure there is in good condition. The metal there we're starting to worry about a little bit, so we wanted to be able to coat that metal and ensure its life. So that was that alternative 2. It includes the metal rake structure, the metal center column, and the metal bridge. There was also an additive alternative number 2 in the bid. It was a non-wetting coating to go over the weir and the trough for the clarifiers 1 and 2. We've had to change our treatment process. We have a very labor-intensive issue of algae growing on the walls. And it takes many, many man-hours for a person to go out there and clean this algae. It's a weekly process. And this coating is supposed to keep that from sticking to, we're not sure. It was sold to us as something that would not stick. So we added that to the bid just to have an alternative there. So bids were received on March 23rd. We received 6 bids. 1 bid was non-responsive. It did not come in on time, and it was not on the proper form. Of those 6 bids, we inspect 3 manufacturers for this job, Sherwin-Williams, Carboline, Tnemic. The spec was written around Carboline, but we were able to get approved methods from the other 2 companies. Bids came in, we had a $500,000 budget. The paint manufacturer's reps told us that we would be well under $300,000 on this project, so that's why we went informal. Low bid came in using the Tnemic product, and the low bidder was Creative Resurfacing LLC. They're out of High Point. They have done work with us before. Their base bid was $194,750, and they also had an alternative for the number 7 clarifier, that metal that needs to be coated, and that was $47,800. At this time, staff is recommending we award this clarifier rehab project to Creative Resurfacing LLC, just for the base bid and additive alternative number 1, not number 2.
Well, they're gonna try to get us a middle in for number 2.
What happened was that company, the low bidder, did not bid an unspec product for that alternative. They're responsible on everything else, so we're awarding the bid to the low bidder, but we can't award that at this time.
That's why it's an alternative.
Okay. So the staff is recommending that we award the base bid and add alternative number 1 for a total of $242,550.
We have a recommendation here. Any questions? Entertain a motion to approve this awarding of this bid as recommended by staff.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we award this contract on the base bid and add alternative 1 as recommended by staff.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Moffett. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Snuggs down there. Questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. As Attorney Sugg is coming up to the podium. Let me clarify something. I asked a question a while ago that, if I had read my packet more closely, I would have known that we were talking about one of these with two plugs, not two of these with two plugs. So, it's in your packet. I have to thank Mr. Moffett for pointing that out to me. One bollard with two plugs. Thank you. Okay, introducing, item 13, City Attorney Jeff Sugg, 13A, an update on potential purchase of a leasehold interest in Hangar Inn in Asheboro Regional.
I can be really brief on that. There's no action that the city council needs to take. The consulting engineer at the airport has retained a subcontractor, an acquisition specialist who knows how to follow all the procedures required by the Federal Aviation Administration and the State Division of Aviation. They have conducted necessary due diligence to prepare a fair market appraisal, and we're still waiting to hear back from that. So until that is received, there's nothing to be done.
Item 13B, a resolution of intent to permanently close portions of the public right-of-way on Sunset between Church and Davis.
Yes, sir. And you should have at your seats a copy of the resolution and the plat. Very good. It's a two-sheet plat. One side deals with the north side, one sheet deals with the north side of Sunset Avenue between Church Street and Davis. The second deals with the south side. At the end of the day, and I won't go over all the details, you've heard that before, but basically there's available property that can be used by private landowners to continue to develop Asheboro, downtown Asheboro. The city staff, engineering department, the city manager are recommending reducing that public right-of-way to what is absolutely needed, and so the rest can be available for development. In order to reduce that right-of-way, we have to go through a permanent street closure project, with the basic goal being to go from a 70-foot right-of-way in this particular section of Sunset Avenue to a 56.67-foot right-of-way. In total, that would mean closing 4,737 more or less square feet of total area. The resolution approaches it as a street closure area 1, the north side of Sunset Avenue, and a street closure area 2, the south side of Sunset Avenue. In order to carry out the closure, the state statute specifies that the first formal step for the city council to take is to pass a resolution of intent, which is what you have at your seats. And I will go ahead and tell you, I'm going to ultimately recommend adoption by reference of that. With the adoption of that resolution, which describes by metes and bounds closure area 1 and 2 on the plat that you have in front of you, the resolution will state your intent to close that area permanently. It will state that there's a public hearing to be held, and I will note that the hearing will not be next May, the upcoming meeting in May, it will be June 10th. And the reason for that is we need time to meet all of our notice requirements, publication, posting on the street, and mailing to the adjoining property owners as per statute. So therefore, the hearing would be during your regular meeting on June 10th. I will also point out on the plat, typically with your more ordinary street closures, it's the whole street, and by operation of law, when the council closes it, if that's what you choose to do, by operation of law, the property lines of adjoining property owners just go to the center line. Since we're having to do this on both sides of the street, the statute does specify that you can make arrangements for any division of property as is appropriate, so long as the property owners just sign the plat. So if you'll notice on each of those sheets and the plats for each side, there's an area where the property owners can be approached and give them a chance to sign the plat. So therefore, it gives that the extra time until June, lets us approach those property owners, get the signatures, and then when you have the hearing in June, that can be submitted as part of the hearing. And the basic purpose of the hearing is to allow anyone to speak, to state if they have a position where they think this closure is against the public interest or harms someone's property rights, particularly access. Staff does not see any harm, but that's why you have the hearing, to find out if someone has a different view. And just for what will happen down the road, if you're satisfied with what you hear during the hearing, you adopt the ordinance. People then have, anyone who has standing would have 30 days to go to Superior Court to challenge that outcome. If there's no successful challenge in Superior Court, we would then record the ordinance and the plat, the ordinance which I will draft at the time of the June meeting, an ordinance which will be the order, and the plat will be recorded in the Register of Deeds office to complete the task. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but the bottom line is the recommendation of adoption by reference of the resolution of intent. Because it is going from 70 to, you're right, about 10 foot, because we're going from 70 to 56.67.
Very good. Unique, the different properties.
It is.
Questions?
That's definitely why it's so important to us to have the plat and get the property owners to sign, get their acknowledgement of what is going on with this.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this resolution of intent by reference.
Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution of intent to terminate those portions of the public right of way by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You and I going to the same barber now? Your hair go a little bit.
You know there's a reason for that, because I come from long heritage of cutting it close.
Mr. Ogburn,
right.
14A, COVID-19 update.
Yes, Mayor, I'll just move briefly, John, if you'll do the, thank you, John. So as of April 7th, which was yesterday, we've had 14,370 active cases of COVID in Randolph County. Now, it's not where you're diagnosed, it's where your home of record is. A lot of people in Randolph, of course, go to the physicians in Guilford or Alamance or Davidson counties. Unfortunately, we've had 217 deaths from COVID. As of yesterday, 28,298 people have been partially vaccinated, meaning they've had the first shot. And number of persons fully vaccinated is 19,267. So that's moving on. And, you know, they've been really strict about who can get the vaccine. Randolph's opened up now. You can make appointments. In fact, the mayor and I were at a meeting today, and unfortunately, well, now we have more vaccine than we have patients, and several months ago, we had more patients than we had vaccines. So if you know people who have not been vaccinated, or they may have had COVID or COVID-like symptoms and they weren't allowed to get vaccinated and they're eligible now, please get them to Randolph Public Health or a local pharmacy. We want to continue to get the vaccine out.
Out of 120,000, we should know somebody.
Yeah, you know somebody. Yeah, I think everybody in here has been vaccinated or had it, and then they're waiting for their window before they can have it. So I think we're leading by example there. City Hall will open on May the 3rd. Okay, that's so we'll be open for the next council meeting. Water billing will remain closed, but you'll be able to come in and make a new purchase, close out and open new accounts. We're still going to keep water billing closed. We just hired a new employee. She started last week, and if you remember how tight it is down there, there's not much room. When we tried to install the plexiglass, commonly known as sneeze guard, it made it smaller and more tight. So we're working on that as well. Next slide, please, John. So in that regard, Mayor, that's our report for COVID. That's the agenda, John. Do you have it in front of you? So that's the COVID report, Mayor. The next item we have on the agenda, Mayor, is
American Recovery Act Fund distribution.
Right. Thank you. So Mayor and I, Smith, went to, today, we met with Chairman Fry and County Manager Johnson and the rest of the mayors and city managers from the county on the American Recovery Act funds. They will be distributed in May. Asheboro's part is $7.59 million. $7.59 million. Got the list here. The county's is, remember what that number, Mayor, was? 21 million. Yeah, 42 million is to be divided into the whole county. Randolph County is 27.8 million. Archdale's 3.37 million. Asheboro 7.59 million. Franklinville 350,000. Liberty 780,000. Ramsewer 490,000. Randleman 1.2 million. Seagrove 70,000. Staley 120,000, and Trinity 1.93 million. So that the rules are not out on that yet. We do anticipate using a lot of that against our Zoo City Sportsplex. That frees up the money for the streets. That's the next thing I was going to say. So, and if you've noticed that we probably need some more in the capital projects fund because of the sheer cost of construction items going up. So that was a good meeting today. We got a long way to go, a lot to work out on that. The federal legislation, the COVID Act, CARES Act, the first money, Debbie's reported, several months ago on it. That money's been allocated now. That was from the first batch signed up by President Trump. That money came directly to the county and then was divvied up by population. These funds are direct allocation to the cities or the county. It's a little different funding method. We have, the rules are that we'll get half this fiscal year, supposedly in May, and half next fiscal year. So we'll book it, some in this fiscal year, some in next fiscal year. We have not, like I said, we have not received the rules on that yet. As Jeff always reminds you, North Carolina is a Dillon rule state. That being said, there will be state rules on top of the Fed rules. So when the feds publish the rules, the state will then have their rules that we align, meaning we still have to have both sets of government's approval. We'll see how that is. Like I said, the $900,000 we received last fall for the NC Community Development Block Grant COVID Act to be used for items such as rent awareness, bill pay, food. We have not received we have received notification we've received that money. We have not had our session yet with our CDBG representative, nor have we received those funds. At which time we will have that, we will push those funds through to the United Way, our partner agency. That is behind schedule, obviously, when they told us we needed to start pushing them out at Christmas, if you remember when we applied. There was 27 local governments selected. Asheboro is one of them. When we get the funds, we'll start pushing that out ASAP. The state has had to rehire people to manage that program, and that's some of the issue on those two. So that's what's out there still to go. There's a lot happening at the federal level. Item C on this list, and John, there you go, is the also when you go home tonight, and you've heard recently in all the federal news, the President Biden's asking for a big infrastructure bill, roads, bridges, water, sewer. He's also asked for veterans hospitals to be upgraded, airports, etc. Mayor Smith and I met with Representative Budd's staff here locally, and we asked for 2 projects to be considered in that federal legislation. The first is the extension of sewer down East 64 to what is commonly known as the John Deere Place or Presnell Street. We have that project, engineering work and field work's all about done. We could have that project ready to go and be on the ground in about 12 months. That's a little more than, what was that, 1.2 million. We have asked for that to be funded in that, and John has a map of it up there. That is in the primary growth area of the city as well, and that would be the retail driver. Now, in the end of May, in June, when we start our budget process, our sales tax continues to be strong. We've had more than $1 billion in sales again in Randolph County. That is without the tourism business, which has basically been decimated by this pandemic. We did draw a break when the Supreme Court ruled that states could have sales tax, and states had to collect it. So when you go to Amazon now or Walmart.com or whatever, they charge sales tax. That's how that's getting back. Again, the sales tax does not come to us directly. It's collected by the state, and it's sent to Randolph County and distributed on a per capita basis. That's the method Randolph chooses. There are a lot of, as John shows up there, there's about 350 acres, large tracts. It would be really a shot in the arm to our retail sector. And we do anticipate, remember the Southern Loop is built now. Asia and Australia will be ready to go in 2023. 2024, that'll make the zoo an overnight stay, and we need no more hotel space too. So getting, it's in our primary growth area. We don't anticipate, it would be tough for a developer to go over that hill, be the first one to, homestead, to go over that hill. When the sewer's out there and the water's out there, their ability to borrow and their ability not to have to prove that they're going to put the water and sewer in makes it much more developable. That's the first project we mentioned to them. The second project, John, if you go show the next one, please, is the what we call the Federal Opportunity Zone project, or the extension of Commerce Place that the mayor mentioned earlier, and water and sewer extension north. That's the project. Now that map the map runs this way, so kind of got to orient yourself, orient your head. Yeah. That's been ready.
Pine View on the right. Pine View is on the right-hand edge.
Yes, sir. And that would be to complete Commerce Place and the extension of water and sewer in that street up behind it. Now that property is in the Federal Opportunity Zone, so designated by the U.S. Department of Commerce. All the capital gains on the development of those properties in that zone, they have a differential capital gains tax rate. It may be zero. I can't remember. It's very nominal. There are developers interested, ready to go. The property owners are ready to go if we can tie this property down. Now that project, the amount of that one, John, was 230 acres. You see that it's about, it's in 1 mile. All the, the high-speed internet, the natural gas, the power, quality and quantity of electric power for industrial use is there. It's already industrial zoned, of course, and it's about a $5.9 million turnkey job. So
it solves a huge safety problem for us up there at the railroad track.
Well,
Commerce Place.
Now, our existing agreement with NCDOT on the extension of Commerce Place, the connecting, is that we would pay anything above $400,000, and we would use some of our crews and some of DOT's crews, and we would get it done. Well, DOT spent about $150,000. It's about $250,000 to go. They want us to finish it, which I said, fine, send us the check. And they said, well, you finish it, then we'll check it, then we'll give you the check. I said, well, no, we're not running a bank. And they said they're not either. So at this point, our agreement still stands. I do think DOT is going to be broken loose for some money. Mayor Smith was at Senator Craven's event Monday night, and they said that they were pulling monies from different funds to be pushed back out through DOT. So maybe that will break that project loose. So we do look for now, you'll see, and it was just tonight before we came here, this big, a $2.5 trillion, I think, infrastructure bill is not a done deal. Quite frankly, we don't know how our two senators are for or against it yet. And, of course, I guess the most powerful man in Washington, D.C. now, Senator Manchin of West Virginia, has a few things to say about it, too. So we'll see how far it goes. But we have asked for that. The staff was very supportive of these two projects. We hope we can actually, Congress has opened back up. The street name was ground, on earmarks. It's actually congressionally directed spending is what they're going to call it. But we've made the point that in a Republican district, in a Republican county, in a heavy Republican district, if you leave it up to the administration, our county and our district may be out. And they hadn't really thought about that, so that was a good point the mayor made, and it's going. So we'll see what happens on that. Watch the news; there'll be plenty of talk. Would the Kaiser say you like sausage, but I don't want to see it made? I think the 24-hour all news channels let us see them make sausage. We may have a little more ability to get more work done up there if there were, what Congressman Coble used to say, if there were a few more workhorses and a few less show horses. So that's what we have. Last thing, Mayor, we've talked a lot about the Dixieland Subdividers project and safety enhancements. We will begin later, may not be in April, maybe early May before we get out on there, but we'll be sending letters out to the neighborhood, direct mailing, so that they know we're working in their streets and what we'll be doing. It'll contain maps and all. So just want to let you know that project is going to begin this spring, and we're working forward. We'll start with the easy parts. Obviously, we'll do the painting in the street. We'll move on to the more capital-intensive projects in the next year or so. So that's where we are today. The mayor and I will let you know more as we get more on the Recovery Act funds, as well as the public infrastructure funds that become available. And, of course, the state budget process is beginning as well, so we'll see where that ends. That's what out there. I have nothing more to report on Randolph Hospital. Their bankruptcy process than you know. The process is in place. Next Tuesday, April 13th, the Local Government Commission is scheduled to meet. As of this afternoon, the mayor and I don't know if our application's on there. We're assuming it will be on there. We'll let you know when we know what happens.
Okay.
All right, back to you, Mayor.
Do we have a slide for upcoming events?
We got just two, Mayor, quickly. The prayer breakfast will happen.
At this point, it's on go.
For 50% attendance, 50% occupancy. Thursday, that's the day of council, May the 6th at 6:30 a.m. Joanne Cockman can't promise everybody tickets. Now, she's a miracle worker at the end of that, but with only the half the tables used, or all the tables used.
All the tables are going from 9 seats to 4 seats.
Yeah, occupancy. So we will get, Joanne will be reaching out to you. We'll need to know pretty close if you're going to be able to attend or not. Is the speaker announced yet, Mayor?
Tommy Bowden.
So former Clemson coach, Tommy Bowden. Good speaker. All right, that same day, it's always our fate to have 8 things on the council day. Thursday, May the 6th at 11, and there's an invitation at your spot. It's in the envelope. It's the CDS Systems. That's in North Asheboro in the industrial park. That is at 11. That's the ribbon cutting. I think there's a light lunch at 12 and plant tours They've been very appreciative, and they're here, ready to go. Want to thank Jeff and all he did to get all the contracts.
Ribbon cutting's actually at 12,
Okay.
refreshments appetizer at 11, facility tour and lunch to follow. They are very, very, very complimentary of Randolph County, the EDC, the city of Asheboro, permitting and building inspections. They are just tickled to death, and they're moving their headquarters from Chicago to, they're consolidating a couple of High Point plants here, but they're also moving their headquarters from Chicago. So, they make, auditorium furniture.
Yeah.
And, just so excited to be here.
So Mayor, tonight, you know, farmer's market time will be coming up soon. Also, we are beginning, we have temporarily or ready to go, bands booked for the summer concert series. Jonathan's still back here. He's keeping up with the governor's order, if we can get.
We're currently about 450 people host in Basin Park for a concert.
Well, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you capacity out there was about 10,000.
Well, probably is the first day we
But
have.
you didn't ask me, so.
And we won't count. So that we hope to get that going. Also, our gym attendance is up again. Our program attendance is up. Have we had Little League tryouts?
Yes, we're actually starting practices.
So what's our traditional, we're working rapidly to get to our traditional recreation schedule, which we'll all feel glad to have a sense of normalcy about it.
How many teams you got? You got like the one age group travel team?
Well, they're not traveling, we play with the Southwest Baseball League. And the numbers that we heard Monday night at the last meeting was 23 T-ball teams, 18, now that's not just us, that's that whole area. 18 8U teams, 12 10U teams, and 6 12U teams.
Cool.
Yep. It's up. We do anticipate a full season of post-45 American Legion.
Comprehensive.
Jonathan and I have determined that McCrary Park holds 700 people. If we're not at full capacity in post-45s in the state playoffs, we will not go and count. There will be more than 700 people there. There are not 700 people there for the Copperheads, so on both counts, we're okay. Maybe the Copperheads will feel a little better team this year, and they may be. Anyway, we hope to be wide open by then, and school will return to normal.
Coach left last week.
Yeah, I heard that. So, get your vaccine. For everybody out there, again, reach out to the Department of Public Health, Randolph County Department of Public Health. You can get it on their website or just the County of Randolph website. You can go right to it, schedule your vaccine. We have had a vaccination clinic for our employees here and our dependents. That went well. That's really the name of the game here. Get as many people as vaccinated as possible and get back up to running.
Thanks, sir.
I'd like to ask a question. Will the east side be able to have May Day this year?
At 50%
First
capacity.
Saturday in May?
Yes, ma'am. So with 50% capacity, if you want to, we are working with Willie Gladden and his folks too to have something for the
Football camp.
Coach Murphy. We can't have football camp,
They're
but we're
having-
trying to have
they're
a
gonna do
concert.
Gospel concert in Brewer Street Park, I think. What they're wanting to do.
And have a dinner, I think a dinner. So yeah, we can do it at 50% now. You anticipate the governor speaking this week, John? Have you heard?
No, the order goes through basically in April, so somewhere in the middle of that last week, he'll give us an update.
Okay. We're going to do all we can to accommodate the spring and summer events. And get
Everybody
back to-
got that invitation to City of Systems. It requires an RSVP.
If everybody just wants to reach out to Joanne, we'll RSVP once for everybody. That way they'll have the names right and who's who.
Okay. We'll start down here with Katie. Anything?
I'd just like to say, the young man that was killed in the drive-by shooting was my nephew. And I would like to thank all of you all for your prayers, for your letters, for coming by the house, for the phone calls, for the texts. Just thank you all, and let's keep praying for us.
Happy birthday to Johnny.
Birthday.
And, somehow the numbers seem shockingly low in a way on the vaccine. Then it's been, as you said, I ended up at the Denton, CVS.
Yeah,
You know, they've had both shots and hope everybody else takes advantage everywhere they can find one as soon as they can find one. Get rid of these.
I'll just say, in Public Works, one of the things that's wonderful is they're wonderful at what they do, in part because they have to do it so much.
Yeah.
And in our neighborhood, we frequently have utility issues. And Scott pointed out to me the other day that we had City of Asheboro working one area and a contractor for the utility company at another area. The City of Asheboro, you can barely tell that they've done anything. The contractor, it still is torn up because we're good at what we do and they are not. Unfortunately, we have to be, and hopefully we can resolve some of this.
Yeah, we live here too, so it's easy to find us.
I was a little don't want to end this on a negative thing, but I hate it when folks complain after the fact about things that they are aware of what's coming about. And particularly if they don't participate.
Sarah had told them before the event that she was concerned, and Emma had also told the committee ahead of the event that they were concerned about closure of Fayetteville Street ahead of the event. But said, we'll wait and see how it works out.
Okay. But it's just, if you don't participate, then it's sort of hard to say that you're negatively affected. I know it's not really our game. We try to facilitate it with the parties, but.
Well, and the committee the board has voted to go forward with the event from May to September, second Saturday, and close Fayetteville Street each of those. So.
I think they want to try it again in May though, before they do that. So we're gonna see if, I've got everybody's contact information. I'm gonna try to see if we can't figure out something a little better.
If it can't be tweaked, then that's.
And I was gonna say that,
There's
we've been doing
one business down there, and he did it in November in the back parking lot and had a big time. Had his food trucks back there, had his tables out there in the back parking lot. You know, if it only accommodating one business on Fayetteville Street, then closing Fayetteville Street's a little bit much.
And we still conduct an after-action review after 50-some, whatever, 52nd, 53rd upcoming fall festival. We conduct an after-action review after every Christmas parade. Neither one of them are our events. We'll conduct an after-action review about this, and we'll get everybody's comments. We'll see. I promised I'd meet with all the sides next week, and maybe we can work something out. That's the thing about, you've heard me say many times, the chicken and the egg, which comes first, it doesn't matter, you have to have both. That's the answer. For downtowns, center city areas, you have to have first-class private space, and you have to have first-class public space, and you have to have both of them, or you have neither of them. So with that public space comes shared responsibility to be a good neighbor. We all, and when you, like in buildings, you share the common wall, all those type issues. So we'll see if we can't work it out.
I had the idea that.
Historically, closing Federal's been a higher bar.
Yeah.
Yes, but we're in kind of strange territory.
We are that.
That
I don't know
was,
how you accommodate everybody.
and that was
to the
the
common area.
drive.
It was a big deal to close Federal.
That Saturday morning, 8:30, I drove up, there's a modular home sitting down there in Fayetteville Street in front of, AutoZone. And I pulled up and asked the scout car, the trailer car, I said, is there somebody helping you? And she said, no, our scout car's gone around on the detour trying to figure out where we can go. And I said, call him back, I'll take care of it.
There's one answer there.
At 8:30, at 8:30, nobody was set up. So he came back, he said, I cannot clear the wiring, overhead wires on Church Street. I said, no problem. I moved the barricade and he drove through.
I was there, I saw it, yeah. Good work, Mayor.
So, but that is their preferred route, and they always have a permit. And they come through there on Saturday mornings, and during the week regularly. Half of a modular, you know. But anyway.
The validity of that permit on Saturday morning might be suspect.
Well, they're always willing to show it.
I'm just saying, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
And it was early. It was early, so maybe they have a time limit. Mr. Burks.
I was thinking on this same issue here, one of the people that called me and talked and complained was that their customers couldn't park and get into their business. What are their, because we don't have those parking spaces marked off. Are there like 12 or 13 spaces there on Fayetteville Street in front of the Hedrick building? Roughly. I mean, is there a way, because there's clearly a back entrance into the exchange. Is there some way on those dates in that second Saturday, could we designate 12 or 13 spaces in the city parking lot in the back?
Could be.
And say these are for Hedrick
Could
building
be.
or whatever.
Could be.
She's also, in our conversations, in my conversation with her, I went over there and met with all of them. I had said, Roger's been living with this for quite a while. There are times when the back parking lot is full. You need to keep up with the calendar and understand that you can direct your people up Cranford, and you got 60 or 70 spots right there in the Chamber of Commerce parking lot. But it was just a colossal mess because there was a van set up in front of the exchange, and there was a food truck set up in front of the bagel place.
And it's not as,
And that seemed to be one of the core issues that Fayetteville was closed.
And at 8:30, people headed up there to get a bagel, hit the barricade at Times Square, and didn't know where to go.
and it's not supposed to be a street festival. It's supposed to be, it's to double your square footage, or your occupants.
So.
But we understand.
And he understands that now, and we all know who we're talking about. He just made it bigger than he should have, and I guess they were upset because the van was in front of the exchange and the food truck was in front of the other food.
I'm surprised nobody's brought it up, and I'm not trying to rattle anything off, but I'm glad their business is doing very well. Survey Carolina, and all their Suburbans back there, I don't know where the balance of that is.
Oh, Taco Loco's got 3 cars parked out in front of my building 24 hours a day for the last month. 2 of them hadn't been moved in a month on North Street.
You need to call the mayor.
That'd be what I'd do.
I can tell you.
He can get stuff done.
I keep using them.
And there's somebody that works there that makes a parking place in front of the yellow line every day when he comes to work. And there's another guy that works there, or Hamilton's, that every day when he comes to lunch, he parks on the gym side of the street facing the wrong way every single day. And the whole side of the street, other side of the street, can be empty. He will still pull over on the other side of the street.
That's left to center, that's a 4-point violation.
Well, I'm pretty sure we told police to enforce parking.
Missed the change about 30 minutes ago.
Well, I'm really getting fed up with it, because we're ignoring it. And the more we ignore it, the more they do it. So anyway, Mr. Swears.
I'm good. I think we
You
aired,
don't wanna
we
follow.
aired enough of our grievances
You
and
don't wanna follow that tirade.
that's all right.
Let me
It's
tell you-
getting late.
Let me go back to what Jane said. John, we got a letter to the mayor a couple of weeks ago, criticizing, saying, you got a steel plate on Fayetteville Street at Mayflower. It's been there for 3 damn weeks. Your water people dug up the street and won't fix it. And we've been bouncing over that steel plate for 3 weeks or so. And then he went on to say, you've never done a damn thing for North Asheboro. The only thing you've done for North Asheboro is build a police substation. But you've never done anything for North Asheboro. You won't fix this water. The steel plate should have been gone weeks ago. And I mean, just during your administration,
That's what he's saying.
And it was Piedmont Gas, it was not the water company.
Yeah. And his return address, when you wrote him back, was wrong on his.
Yeah, he had a letterhead with his return address, we wrote him back, and
The letter
he
came back because his return address
I'm
was.
never familiar with that phenomenon. We get that a lot.
So,
Call me right now. You never return my phone call, and then you return the phone call.
and truth is, this
It's in
guy,
their number.
this guy usually calls me. He will call me and has called me many times over the years. But this time, I guess he was so upset, he needed to write it. So, we wrote him
not
back
us.
and said, gas company, not the water, not city water.
Yeah, but when you do have, in all honesty, whatever aside, when we have about 400 miles of pipe underground stuff, that's why the electric guys don't like to be underground. They'll tell you, won't they? They like to ride around and look up and shine that light up on the pole. We look down there, we see the same thing you're looking at. Gotta dig down to find it.
I will tell you that the other day, our water sewer repair guys were changing out a meter to a radio read meter on one of the industries. That meter was 14 feet in the ground in a vault that I couldn't fit in. And the 4 guys out there, and I stopped and talked to them for a minute. I looked down, I said, damn. And they said, we drew straws to see that. And seriously, the little guy of the 4, the little guy was the one that had to go down the hole. And I passed by there 5 hours later and they were still out.
They had to have fill out the confined space.
Confined space entry was completely, yes, right. And
Oh,
we,
yeah, had their tripod
Yeah,
and all
the-
that, but they were
Yes.
just changing
It's
out
a
a meter.
2-hour ordeal
to set it up.
Took
Yeah.
about, it took the better part of the day. They were out there at 8 o'clock that morning, and they were still out there at 2:30.
If it's 2 hours, get ready to go in the hole.
Yeah.
Gosh, come on.
Yeah, sure is.
But anyway, thanks for letting me rant.
Happy birthday to you.
Mayor.
Well, it's been one of our longer meetings lately. We had a lot of reports.
So we meet again, Mayor, Thursday, May the 6th. Watch sometime into May, we'll be finishing up the budget. We don't anticipate much different. You know, our projects are ongoing, so we don't look for a lot of new information. Then we meet, of course, till June. We'll adopt a budget. Then the fiscal year will be up. We know we just had Steve here, last month?
Yep.
And then we'll be on the cycle all over again. So,
Prayer breakfast will be streamed live, supposedly at this point. That's what we're planning. And as everything else we've done for the last year, this is all subject to change.
Next
Right now,
month.
we're looking at 4 people per table, same number of tables.
And the final thing, Mayor, is we saw Richard Thompson. He was was our officer last, Captain Richard Thompson, APD. Tonight, you approved awarding him a service weapon. He will not be at the May council meeting, so he's retiring. He's not going to be here. So if you see him in his duties between now and I think probably next week or the next week after that, this is the end of his career. So please thank him for all his service.
Okay, thanks for being here, appreciate it. Everybody have a good week, good weekend. Thanks for your work, staff. John?
No, she went back Monday.
I got it.
I know,
She-
y'all
one thing
were
I need-
excited.
It really was a whirlwind.
the right way to look at it.
Her work schedule got worked out between the island vacation days
Question for you, so I can be sure and say,
and the,
Cheryl Armstrong.
company.
Take care of yourself.
But it turns out she was able to work from home on
About the
Tuesday.
capital campaign.
I mean, on Wednesday.
Got it in their head that they would be
And
somewhere.
Thursday,
in
Friday,
the
Monday was
grant
holiday. She flew in Tuesday, worked from home,
That
and then,
fall under some category we
flew
could
back Monday.
give to the capital.
Had her almost a week.
I told Cheryl
That's
our list is
usually
long,
it's
and
a whirlwind.
you take the hospital off the table, I can promise you, we have no idea.
Yeah, we had both of them home. 5 days. Didn't know how to act.
I did everything I could to confuse her hopes. Matter, I assumed that was the right thing to do. Local coffers is not where you get that. All I was saying was, this will take away from our streets. And our streets.
We can get to be 68. The problem is I can't keep up with my notes.